went to the dentist, and I took him to get a burrito at Los Muertos. Took him back to school, and in less than 2 minutes, the school called and said, "Your son's having a hard time breathing, and he's swelling up. Really went into his shellfish, and Rachel was on, well, let's try and get him taken to the hospital."
Okay.
Got there.
It's a little after 2 p.m. on Tuesday, September 17th. This is a workshop on allocating mineral lease, state payment in lieu of taxes, Forest Service, Secure Rural School, Rural Health Care, Sales Tax, and Transit Room Tax Mitigation Funds to eligible entities.
Sorry, can we record this please first?
We can.
I apologize.
Would you like me to repeat that?
Where is our chair?
All right. Okay, it is 3 minutes after 2 on September 17th, 2019. This is a workshop on allocating mineral lease, state payment in lieu of taxes, Forest Service, Secure Rural School, Rural Health Care Sales Tax, and Transient Room Tax Mitigation Funds to eligible entities. Present are Chris Baird, Craig Halliday, Mary McGann, Rory Faxman, Jaylen Hawks, and myself, Terry Morse. So, we have some action items, 4 to be exact. Action item A, adopting proposed resolution allocating mineral lease funds and state received by the state of Utah during calendar year 2020 to be for 2 eligible special service districts and or to the school district. Chris Baird.
Thanks, Terry. So I think the way that we should progress is to address all 4 of them first.
Oh, good, you're up there.
And then after we figure out how we want to sort all 4 of those action items out, then we'll progress into making motions. Sound good? All right. So in your packet, there's a spreadsheet. I've actually updated it. It's changed a little bit, just refining projections. The hard part of what we're doing is that we have to project how 2019 is going to pan out. And given that we have to accrue at least the first 2 months of 2020 back into 2019, we're only working with about half a year's worth of information for 2019. So we have to project 2019, then we have to project 2020 on top of 2019, which is what this spreadsheet attempts to do. I'll start off sort of in a linear fashion with regard to time. In 2018, the Canyonlands Healthcare Special Service District cumulatively received $1,689,915, and this is about $222,000 more than we projected, and so they got a pretty good windfall at the close of 2018. Similarly, the EMS Special Services District, the total collections for them between transient room tax and the rural health care tax, $723,000, which was about $87,000 more than we projected for 2018. Recreation Special Services District received a total of $498,619, which is about $15,000 more than we projected. The school district in 2018 got about $167,000, which is pretty close to what we projected. Transportation district in 2018 got $104,000 roughly, which is about $7,400 more than we projected. And then solid waste got $400,000, and that was the transient room tax that we guaranteed them. So moving into 2019, like I said, we have to do some projections. And so starting off, this has got some feedback. I just put it further away. So the projection that I made for 2019 was about 6% growth for the rural healthcare tax. Right now we're on track to hit about 7.5% growth, so my projection is probably a little on the conservative side, which is generally how we budget, is on the conservative side of our growth projections. And so if everything pans out, I believe that the Canyonlands Healthcare Special Service District will get at least $1,370,000 roughly in rural healthcare tax for 2019. I've got some indication that 2019's mineral lease disbursements are down significantly. So I did reduce that from what we projected last year. From Kirsten Peterson, she says that they predict about 240,000. So that's a split off that total. Again, that's a big unknown. We don't know what's going to happen in the oil and gas industry, but that's a pretty conservative figure there. Moving on to EMS for 2019 projections, we approved 35% of the DWS mineral lease, which is a different pot of mineral lease. Based on the information I have from the Recreation Special Services District, that revenue stream seems to be about the same as last year as far as I could tell. Close to about $255,000 total. And so 35% of that is about $89,000. We laid out 50% of the state payment in lieu of taxes, which is a fairly reliable number, $150,298, and that's already been paid out. We contributed $79,000 in transient room tax, and again, estimating that they will receive around $738,000 in the rural healthcare sales tax. Recreation Special Service District, we approved 23% of what's now the Utah Division of Finance appropriated mineral lease. Again, that's separate from the DWS appropriated. 23%, $84,923. 65% of the other mineral lease is $165,750, and 40% of state PILT. Let me just fix that cell. Being slow. Uh-oh, I broke it. %40 of state PILT would be $120,000, so $370,911 projected for Recreation Special Service District. And so that's down from 2018, mostly because we took 35% off of this DWS appropriated mineral lease in 2019. Not to mention a reduction somewhat in our projections for the other mineral lease. With the school district, we removed their 50% of state PILT and left them with 50% of the Forest Service Secure Rural Schools funding. I'm not exactly sure how much they receive, but it's always similar to that value, about $20,000 to $21,000 a year. I don't know what they've received this year, but it's probably pretty close to that. Same with the Transportation Special Service District. We almost entirely defunded them because at the point in time that we did this distribution last year, they still only were allowed to work on road projects, and they've since included stormwater projects to their charter. Last year we had plenty of funding for road projects elsewhere. With the Solid Waste Special Services District, we approved 10% of the Division of Finance mineral lease, 10% of the state payment in lieu of taxes, and $325,000 in transient room tax for a total of $390,880. We had predicted it to be about $400,000 last year, but again, this Division of Finance mineral lease I bumped that projection down a little bit. Another cell that needs to be fixed. So moving on to the request that we received, the Solid Waste Special Services District requested at least $500,000 in financial contribution combined, and mixing and matching whatever we would give them. Transportation Special Services District requested $190,000 more in funding for stormwater project matches. The Canyonlands Healthcare Special Service, that's what you guys requested.
Well, we got two projects that are scheduled now. Yeah, we got two projects that are scheduled now, and the money that we have in the bank will cover the $190,000. So, and the last meeting, I mentioned that if we don't get any more money, we'll be out of business, period.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. We'll move forward. We've got $400,000 probably next year in stormwater liabilities for match. And so I'm not proposing to send $400,000 to that district, and so it still won't be enough to make the full match, but it will take a chunk off of it. But when we get to that, but anyway, that's what as far as I understood the letter that you guys sent in, you were asking for that amount more. Maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah, I wasn't. I don't think we came up with an actual figure, but the $190,000 was what it was going to take to fund the Jackson Street and the Murphy Lane tie-in. And we had that much, and we have that much in the bank now. But once we spend that, there won't be anything. So.
Okay. So it says $190,000, which is the amount that the Grand County Transportation Special Service District is requesting for the 2020 year.
Okay.
Let's see, the school district again requested 50% of the state payment in lieu of taxes, which if added to them would amount to about $150,000 more going to the school district, although I plugged that into this projection request, but of course we'd have to take that from somewhere else. The Recreation Special Services District's allocation remained unchanged, except for they did request, if possible, more mineral lease for grants and the well project, but they didn't make any specific requests other than just wanting more. The EMS Special Services District requested the same bottom line as 2019, and so my projection for 2019 is $1,056,000 roughly in total revenue. So that would be roughly what they would be requesting. Of course, we're still making projections on 2019, so that's just a guesstimate. And Canyonlands Healthcare Special Services District requested the same allocations as they received in 2019, which is 67% of the Division of Finance, mineral lease, and 65% of the rural healthcare sales tax. And so, of course, Grand County is affected by all these distributions also. Probably the most difficult thing that the council, I think, has to face is that we've already budgeted to take from our rainy day fund, or our bank account essentially, $741,000 to balance this year's budget. And since our transient room tax is coming in less than projected, well, that could definitely send that figure higher, upwards of close to $1 million. And so we've got about $1 million to figure out how to either increase revenue or decrease expenses to just balance this year's budget. And that's not taking into account any kind of future needs. And so I'm proposing some changes to the 2020 allocations that take that into account. So what I'm proposing is to send the 67% Division of Finance appropriated mineral lease from the Healthcare Special Service District. Whoop. Sorry, get back up. Down to the Transportation Special Services District. And so as I somewhat indicated, money sent to the Transportation Special Service District will directly offset general fund expenditures, because right now the only way that we can fund our match for any kind of stormwater project is with general fund money. And so whatever mineral lease money we can send to the Transportation Special Service District, that will be that much less money that we will have to spend out of our general fund to meet those stormwater project needs. At this point, I haven't recommended a change in the rural healthcare sales tax split between the Canyonlands Healthcare Special Service District and EMS. Still have that at 65%. But we can discuss that in a bit, see what the districts feel. With EMS, I recommended removing the $79,000 transient room tax contribution. And again, that $79,000 can go directly into offsetting general fund expenditures at the county level. Maintaining the 50% of the state payment in lieu of taxes. Shifting the 35% of the Department of Workforce Services appropriated mineral lease down to going the wrong way. Shifting that over to solid waste special service district. So that would go to the solid waste instead, which would be about $89,250. And while I'm down there, I directly reduced our $325,000 contribution by that same amount, which is how we got to this transient room tax contribution here of $235,750. And so by supplanting transient room tax with this mineral lease, again, we're freeing up this amount of money for the county to use to offset general fund expenditures. So the EMS they are this year, receiving 35% of the DWS appropriated mineral lease. I'm proposing to send that to the Solid Waste Special Services District and then reduce our contribution to them in TRT by that exact same amount. Does that make sense? And then I've recommended to maintain 35%, like I said, of the rural healthcare sales tax. Moving down to the Recreation Special Services District, I haven't recommended any changes. They're showing that they will be down about $2,400 from 2019. These figures right here, by the way, are what I'm projecting they'll receive in relationship to what I'm projecting they'll receive in 2019. So based on my recommendation, Canyonlands Healthcare Special Service District will receive about $158,000 less than they will this year. And the Emergency Medical Services District about $124,000 less than they will receive this year. Recreation a little bit less, $2,400, mostly because of a reduction in the projection of mineral lease funding. School district will be roughly the same, with the recommendation of 50% of the SRS funding. Transportation Special Services District, again, we moved the 67% of the Division of Finance appropriated mineral release from Healthcare Special Service District down here, and added in 10% of the state PILT, which was actually moved up from solid waste, and still maintain 50% of the SRS. So that would bring the total contribution estimated up to $291,000, which is up $270,500 roughly from what we're projecting for 2019. And again, all this entire contribution could go towards offsetting Grant County's general fund expenditures for stormwater projects. Then moving down to solid waste, my recommendation, maintain the 10% of the Division of Finance mineral release appropriation. Again, moving that 35% of the DWS mineral release appropriation down, and then offsetting the TRT contribution by that same amount, which would reduce it to $235,750, and that would end up with the Solid Waste Special Services District having their contribution reduced by about $30,000. And that's my recommendation. Discussion?
Yes.
I have a question. Where does the transportation sales tax?
Can we get on the mic so that YouTube screening?
My question is, where does the transportation sales tax?
So the transportation sales tax goes basically right into our B roads fund, and it can't be used, unfortunately, for stormwater projects. So last year, before the special service district included stormwater projects in their charter, we virtually defunded them because of the transportation tax passing. And so we didn't need to spend mineral lease on transportation anymore. But once they reworked their charter to include stormwater projects, now they have a reason for existence again.
So transportation special service district is purely stormwater now? Or?
Well, they should be. Obviously, they can do whatever they want with the money according to law, which would include road projects. But if they did road projects, I'd recommend defunding them again. We only need that money to go to stormwater.
And I'll just, on another note, I just wanted to make the point that because of these numbers being so uncertain, Andy and I have not really agreed on a split. With the changes to both of our budgets, I feel like it's premature for us to be able to say, yes, we recommend, the split as it is, or could tell you otherwise, because we kind of have to go back to the drawing board.
Okay. Well, we can.
I don't know if we can get a couple weeks on.
We can postpone it until whenever you're ready, I think. It really only affects you two. And it would be preferable if you could come to an agreement of sorts.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, nothing.
Anything else?
Not for me.
Any other questions while we're doing questions?
Actually, back here,
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, please.
just real quick, Chris, you mentioned that your spreadsheet is slightly different. Did you mean from what's in the packet?
Yeah, it is different.
It is different. So I don't know if council has in front of them other than what you had on the screen.
Yeah,
And
it's
my
up on the
question
screen.
came up because the school district, it said roughly the same as last year, but it's quite different for the one that's in the packet. I guess what I'm saying is we need the most current.
What does the one in the packet say?
The packet for the school district for 2020 shows a total of 20,000 compared to 170,000.
Oh, that's,
no, excuse me.
this is per their request, and so that would be if we approve their request.
I understand.
That,
It is roughly the same as what was provided in 2019.
yeah, so the school district shouldn't be any different from what was in the packet.
I was looking at the wrong.
Some of, yeah, I mean, some of these, all these columns can get confusing, but I kind of need them to make sense of all this as I'm working through it. So and because they're projections, 2019 is a projection based on a half a year really of information, and then 2020 is a projection on top of that projection. And so there's obviously quite a bit of room for error, I guess you could say. It's a projection, and so we try to do the best we can. Like I say, I'm working rather conservatively. I would say that if anything, all these figures are going to end up closing out higher than what I'm projecting. The healthcare special services, or the healthcare sales tax, is tracking on average about 7.5% up from last year, and I projected 2019 and 2020 with only 6% growth. So both of those figures are likely to be a little bit higher when they close out. And I think that the Division of Finance appropriated mineral lease is likewise a fairly conservative projection. So this is more what I would consider like worst case scenario for how things could close out, rather than if I tried to just nail it right on the head with where things are tracking. And so, but I'd rather, see things come in higher rather than have people plan for some figure and then have it come in lower.
I just wanted to make one more point, sorry. Just that Chris's reading of the newer code regarding the healthcare sales tax, it appears that we can use it for a much broader range of expenses, but I feel like I need to investigate that a little bit more just to make sure that that's the case, because if it turns out that we are still as restricted, not receiving any mineral lease money would definitely impact the healthcare special service district's ability to function as intended. So that's another thing I'll at least look into over the next couple of weeks to really get clear on that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
I will. Okay. I just have a couple questions.
Sorry.
Chris, can you tell me again what you had on your 2018 EMS sales tax number? What was the total?
Total is
that
$663,008.
Okay, that must be updated since the audit, I guess, because I had 5 something in our budget, so that must have been, or that's what I showed from our 522 is 894 or 694.85. So it must be changed since the audit.
So
it was 2 months that ended up getting accrued.
Yeah, we have to accrue those. So
that's what that
yeah, it's these. Yeah, these figures, and so it's this spreadsheet's kind of difficult to understand because it's a little bit split up in the accruals, the way that these are accrued. But 2018 kind of starts right here and ends right here. We accrued. Diana used to do kind of like a split where she would actually get from the tax commission reports and then separate everything by reporting time period, which is a very complicated process. And the auditors, I try to get that information from the tax commission, and they just, it was like trying to pull teeth. And I thought, well, why is it so hard to get this information if this is what you're supposed to do? And the auditors said, nobody does that. Everybody just accrues the first 2 months and calls it good. And so that's what I did. Kind And so that's why January and February are accrued to 2018.
I see. Okay. And then on the splits, so I think I'm in line with Kirsten. Our district is going to have to request a significantly different split depending on what happens with property and a building. So while our budget projections, and they always have included a slight increase in the sales tax, every year about a 3 to 5% increase, that it changes significantly when we start looking at our capital costs. So we initially planned on essentially free or next to free property, and that's not going to happen. So it looks like we're going to increase some pretty significant costs for land, and potentially, we don't know yet, and that will significantly impact our capital needs. So I think I want to see what happens before we come back to you guys and say, here's the split, or here's what we'd like to request from the council. But it might be one of those years where Chris and I may not agree, just so you know. But that's okay. We'll work through it as much as we can and bring it back to you. So there's no point in me advocating for a different split in DWS or any of the other stuff.
You can always try.
Well, I'd love to see that.
Well, I mean, I get, all I'm saying is that trying to come up with $1 million budget deficit is very difficult.
Yeah.
And I don't know how the council would do it outside the context of either doing a really truly massive property tax increase,
Right.
like a third higher, or just start firing people.
Well, we're in the same boat. So I mean, we don't have that option for property tax. So if we can't get a different split with the district, and depending on capital, we may end up also having to reduce staff. I think I put that in that email to you. That would be a last resort, of course, but it may be something we have to do. So it's, we're facing right now a $330,000 budget deficit with these numbers, and that doesn't include additional land costs. So just so you're aware. So thanks. It includes the payment back to CIB, but not any additional costs that may be accrued for that project.
Have we got the city to give us any money for this?
We are meeting with the city next week.
Scheduled on their agenda a week from today.
So that's our intention, but we'll still, even if they give us something, we won't know until their budget cycle, which is June. And so anyways, thank you for letting me speak.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So basically, let's follow these recommendations. That frees up how much money to offset the general fund?
Approximately 430, 440,000. It's not as extreme as it could be. I did make concessions on the county's behalf too. I mean, I tried to make this a fair compromise between everybody. And everybody's, looking at budget deficits, it seems. And so, we've got to take our own selves also into account and our needs. And so, I've tried to, reduce the reductions as much as possible and do it in an intelligent way that helps the county out as much as possible. Because the way that this gets organized and the way we make these distributions, the districts could get roughly the same amount of money, but if we don't do it intelligently, then it may not help the county at all. You have to do these distributions and allocations intelligently so that it helps the county. And there's ways to do it where it wouldn't help the county. Like if we sent the mineral lease to a district that doesn't offset general fund money, then it does us no good. That's why we're moving money around like that. And the transient room tax is also something that we can use. And so, there's certain distributions that help the county and certain that don't. And so I try to, even everything out as much as possible and in a way that makes sense for everybody involved.
So if the projection ends up being a lot lower than what comes in, what then?
The projection, well, if the projection is lower than what comes in, then it will be something of a windfall, I guess you could say, for the districts. Or, revenue that they weren't expecting. I don't think it will come in that much less. Like I said, I've only reduced the projection by about 1.5% of growth for the healthcare sales tax. And so, it adds up to about $30,000 for EMS between 2019 and 2020 if it were to come in at 7.5 versus 6. And so it's not a huge amount of money, but it certainly helps. But like I say, it's better, I think, to project on the lower end because you never really know what's going to happen. If we have another government shutdown in 2020, could affect the economy, which could affect sales tax figures. But we are running off of a year where we did have the government shut down for, 2 months at least. Seems like that's becoming more and more a common tactic.
I guess my concern is, of course, it's because I'm on the solid waste special service, but not, that theirs went down significantly from last year. I was wondering.
Well, theirs went down a lot less than EMS and healthcare district. So solid waste is looking at about a roughly $30,000 reduction versus 124 with EMS and 158 with the healthcare. But I guess I'd say if you change these and send more money to the districts, then I would encourage you to have some other plan for how the county is going to make ends meet.
Yes.
Seems like everybody's going to pick up a little slack.
Yeah, and hopefully, I would hope that the city can help out at least for the services that are cross-jurisdictional. I think as we saw with the service chart from EMS, Grant County really only accounts for about 25% of the calls.
Sorry, it's more than that. The rest of it's, that's Park Service. That's all in Grant County, unless we want to separate Park Service out. It's all deal too. So it's more like, county's like 40% of the, I didn't explain that to you when I sent you the chart box. I'm very sorry. But where the other thing includes the parks that are within the county.
Yeah. Well, there's no reason not to seek out an agreement with federal agencies too.
They're really super with, I don't know if you've dealt with them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, really quick, see what I can figure it out there.
I actually do work with them all the time.
Well, let's just say I prefer to work with you. So. But I will learn.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
So, I just have a couple questions for clarification, if I may. So, I'm noticing the only entity projected to receive the TRT funding is currently the solid waste district. So I guess I'm just curious how much is projected for that? Does the remainder of that go to support the county then? Is that correct? Or
That's right.
I'm assuming that's probably a much larger amount than what's being recommended for the solid waste district, or?
The total, at least the mitigation side of the transient room tax is close to 3 million.
Another thing I noticed, just not that I'm picking on anyone here, so just for clarification, so the transportation, historically they had about 20,000, they requested 190,000 more. It looks like they're actually receiving 270,000 more.
Yeah, I would send even more than that if I had my way. Because it's going to, every one of those dollars is going to offset an expenditure that we would have to make at Grant County. And my initial proposal that I first worked up and bounced off the council was to send a lot more than that to transfer to the Transportation Special Service District. Because like I say, every dollar that we send to them is a dollar that we don't have to spend out of our general fund. And it's not historic. They've actually, last year was the first year that we totally defunded them. And so historically, they've actually received quite a lot more than that. Back before the transportation tax passed, we had to send a lot of mineral lease their way to get our road projects finished.
And then finally, with the exception of Transportation Service District, there's one entity that's not receiving a cut in funding from 2019. So I don't know if that was something that was considered or deliberate in funding
the
amounts.
Recreation Special Services District has, that's pretty close to their annual debt load. You know, if we took much more money from them, they wouldn't. They pay on the aquatic center. They pay the debt on the arena, ball field, or the I guess the ball fields were a grant, but they've got a debt load established that they need to maintain. And so we've already kind of done our cutting with them in the last couple of years. They got hit pretty hard in the last few years already. And so, I mean, I look at it from the standpoint of how much, you know, can I cut without, you know, running an entity into the ground. And I don't know how much more we'd be able to take from the Recreation Special Service District without getting to the point where they're in danger of not being able to pay their annual debt load.
I'm not recommending taking money from anyone, just to make sure.
Well, that's the hard part of it is if you ask for money, then it's going to have to come from somebody else.
Right. So solid waste.
Nobody ever comes and says, I want that person's money or that district's money, send it over here. They just say they want the money. But they don't say who to take it from.
That's your job.
So if we can't budget solid waste next year, the only other option we're going to have is to raise our fees again, which could impact, you know, not only local residents but commercial businesses and community at large. So just something to point out. I'm not sure how that's would all.
Well, I mean, the only way,
yet, so.
like I said, I mean, there's always that same repercussion. I mean, you and I discussed the possibility of turning your district into a taxing entity, but in reality, if we didn't do this, the only way that we'd be able to make up for it is if we raised our property taxes to pay you.
Right. I think we missed. But we missed the time.
Why should we take the heat of going through truth and taxation for other entities?
Right.
It's going to be hard enough to do for ourselves.
Right. No, that's understandable. Thank you.
I think it's important to point out that it's really important to offset general fund expenses, especially given the deficit we're facing. We can't carry that forward for several years for us. But it's also important to realize that Transportation Special Service District, because they can now cover storm drain projects, with a backlog of what, $40 million worth of storm drain projects, the community's been saying, why don't you do something? Look at what happens to us every time it floods. So part of the balancing act of this is how do we make the community bigger?
And
But
all,
I commend Chris for the work he's done.
yeah.
Can I ask a question about that? I mean, it seems like I've gone through 52,000 different capital plans since I've worked with the county. The first one I was involved in is 2012. Did we ever do stormwater impact fees for development?
We We are.
And they don't amount to much, is my guess? Is that kind of what?
No, because the state legislature enacted a law that says we can only collect for projects that we can foresee happening within 6 years.
Right.
And so, yeah, it doesn't amount to much. But I have sent every, dollar that we have in the stormwater impact fees over to these projects. I mean, and it's just like always happens. The bids that we had for the Jackson Street detention basin came in, I don't know, like $140,000 over budget, the lowest one, and that almost always happens. And so we had to scramble, and I had to figure out ways to get even more money into that project. We thought we were going to put up about $400,000, ended up putting up probably more like $600,000 into it. And so we have started moving on stormwater projects. We didn't do much of anything with them for a while.
Yeah.
But we're moving on it now.
Yeah, I know. Thanks for doing Harbor. I appreciate that. That'll help me out. So can we not look at redoing impact fees this year?
We are
If you have
going to
6 years
redo
worth of
them.
projects, I imagine that's multi-millions of dollars.
Yeah, we are. Yes. It's budgeted. I don't know if we'll get to it this year.
All right. Thanks.
Yep.
I just wanted to know. Now I feel better. Thanks.
Is there anywhere else you can pull some money for us? That's what we
Working on it. I wish you could do impact fees for.
I think you should put a credit card machine in your ambulance. Or on the door of the ambulance, and it's like, do you want to get in? Where's your wallet?
When I first started in 2000, we used to have a credit card. It was one of those triple kits. Put the credit card on and swiped over. Tell you what, that was the worst I've ever felt as a human being. Credit card.
May I make a few comments?
I don't even have the,
As well? Yeah. I want to echo Chris's sentiments on the district. They're pretty committed to stormwater projects. Some of the things that I know that a lot of folks at this table know, but maybe somebody in the audience don't realize, on our storm drainage impact fees, they've been designated to pay back the county B road fund for the projects they had done over the years. The B road still owed $700,000, somewhere in that neighborhood, from impact fees. We deferred that last year so we could do some more projects, stormwater projects. So the impact fees are spent already.
That's a hell of a tax that you guys are getting into the B road fund too. I mean, shouldn't that make up that difference?
It doesn't matter. Legally, you can't spend B road money on stormwater projects.
yeah, I mean, that's the big
You
problem.
did it or paying it back.
And we did, and with the understanding that the impact fees would pay those back. That was before my tenure. So those are still.
Bill, I've always known you to be truthful. So
Those are still haven't been totally paid back.
No, I understand.
So that impact fee fund that on drainage and a little bit of the roads is pretty well used up, but we've been trying to not push that too hard because we do have a lot of.
Well, even if we redo, like I say, even if we redo our capital facilities plan, and we will, we're still limited to only establishing impact fees based on projects that we can complete within 6 years. And so that really dramatically limits how much you can collect. And so
And the key to that,
it's really never going to be a huge amount of money.
And the key to that, and you gotta spend some money doing it, is getting projects that are shovel ready, So when those fundings roll in, they're ready to go. But it takes money to get those designed and things like that, so.
Thanks, Bill.
So I don't know if anybody, I guess the way that I would recommend proceeding is unless we want to make changes to the spreadsheet here in this council approved column, I would suggest that we set this council-approved column how we want it to be in terms of these percentage splits. And we'll, write that, I'll take notes of that also on our resolutions. But then, I guess, can anybody get on their computer and read the suggested motions? But the suggested motions basically just say approving the resolution as per what we worked out in the workshop, and so, or we could just write it down on the resolution and read it out too in the motion, however you want to do it. But I would suggest setting this column how you want, and maybe, probably postpone the healthcare, rural healthcare sales tax until those districts are ready. But I think everything else we can approve.
So Chris, are there changes in the council approved column from
The projected dollar figures are different, but I think that all the percentage splits, which are what we put into the resolution, because we really don't know what the exact dollar figures are going to be. Those are just guesstimates. But I'm pretty sure that the percentage splits are the same as what I proposed in my in when I submitted for the packet. So that would be, just to reiterate, Canyonlands Healthcare Special Service District, 65% of the rural healthcare sales tax, EMS 50% or so. Then again, we'll probably postpone that. EMS 50% of the state payment in lieu of taxes, 35% healthcare sales tax. Again, probably postpone that line. Recreation Special Services District, 23% of the Division of Finance mineral lease, 65% of the Division of Workforce mineral lease, and 40% of state PILT. The school district, 50% of the Forest Service Secure Rural Schools funds. Transportation Special Services District, 67% of the Division of Finance mineral lease, 10% of the state payment in lieu of taxes, and 50% of the Forest Service Secure Rural Schools funding. And solid waste is 10% Division of Finance mineral lease, 35% Division Workforce Services mineral lease, and then a $235,750 TRT contribution from the county. Thanks.
So it's on this resolution on page,
So the resolutions that I included are not filled in yet. They're just
okay,
blank.
yeah.
I'll see if I can put that up.
Can you, so that you can hand that to us so we can make a motion?
I wrote them all down, but it looks to me like we should do it as an agenda item.
Well, you have to approve them individually because they're different resolutions.
So let's just start at the top.
Okay, and are we gonna read the resolution as part of the motion?
No, but if you want to read percentage split agreed upon, then that might be good for the record, or the audio record. I have it written down right here, but so for the Division of Finance, mineral lease, I'll just fill this in real quick so that you can read it.
All right. So, go for it.
All right, I move to adopt the resolution. Resolution of the Grant County Council allocating mineral lease funds and state PILT received, payment in lieu of taxes, received during calendar year 2020 to be appropriated by the state of Utah during fiscal years 2020 and 2021 as drafted per this workshop, which includes for Utah Division of Finance appropriated mineral lease of funds received in calendar year 2019.
Yeah.
2020 shall be allocated to the Grand County Recreation Special Service District Number 1. 67% of funds received in calendar year 2020 shall be allocated to the Grand County Transportation Special Service District. And 10% of funds received in calendar year 2020 shall be allocated to the Solid Waste Management Special Service District Number 1. And for services, DWS appropriated mineral lease, 65% of the funds received in calendar year 2020 shall be allocated to Grand County Recreation Special Service District Number 1, and 35% of funds received in calendar year 2020 shall be allocated to the Solid Waste Management Special Service District Number 1.
Which one are you on now?
DWS.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And for state bill, in lieu of taxes, 50% of funds received in calendar year 2020 shall be allocated to Emergency Medical Services Special Service District. 40% of funds received in the calendar year 2020 shall be allocated to the Grand County Recreation Special Service District Number 1, and 10% of funds received in calendar year 2020 shall be allocated to the Grand County Transportation Special Service District. Authorize the chair to sign all the statements.
Thank you for that. That was good. That's great. Do we have a second? Second. So motion made by Julian Hawk, seconded by Mary McCann. Any further discussion?
This will have to go in front of the council again too, Chris, right? No?
This is it. This is you're the council.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-1.
What is it, 4-1?
Yeah. Okay, item B, action items.
Yes, okay. So item B, here we go, has to do with the Forest Service Secure Rural Schools Funds. I know for the 11 years I've been around, almost 12, the council has opted for Title I with a 50-50 split between roads and the school district. I don't know if you all want to do something different. I did provide some background for you so that you knew your options. But given that our annual payment is always less than $100,000, you can elect to keep 100% of those funds in Title I projects. And Title I are specific to roads and schools. Questions?
So we have elected in the past and may do so again now to put this money into Title I projects, which includes
Schools.
okay. But the split doesn't necessarily have to be 50.
Correct.
That's not in the, okay, just wanted to clarify.
But we're recommending 50-50, aren't we?
That's what I have down.
We have a motion.
I move to approve the proposed letter to the governor's office with the state payment formula for receiving Forest Service Secure Rural School Funds, and to approve 100% allocation of such funds to Title I projects earmarked for schools and county roads with a 50-50 split between the Grand County School District and the Transportation Special Service District, and authorize the chair to sign all the associated documents.
Okay, we have a motion by Julian Hawk, seconded by our councilman from Castle Valley.
Halliday.
Great. Reality, yeah, absolutely. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Now, are we postponing item C?
Okay, item C, are we postponing that?
Yes.
We are postponing it.
It'd be unfair for me to request something different.
Okay. So,
No, I won't do that. Never.
I move to postpone item C.
Second.
To what? Next meeting or
I don't really have to stay the time,
indefinite?
I mean, preferably next meeting, but I won't hold you to it.
So indefinitely.
Well, I think that we are going to have to be held to that. We all have budgets that we have to develop, so
Okay,
Yeah.
I,
let's
I
I
don't
would
think
say
that we
next
want to
meeting.
wait
put a
beyond
date
that.
then. I move to postpone item C until the next council meeting, which would be
October the first.
October 1st. Authorize the chair to sign all those documents.
Second.
do I have a second?
Second.
Second, okay. Second by our Councilman. Senior moment there. Unbelievable. Okay, and motion made by Jay Lynn, of course. All those in favor of said motion? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
So are we gonna have to postpone D because of the EMS on there as well?
What was D again?
Allocation,
Allocate.
transient room
Transient room
tax.
I don't think you have to, but,
So from what I'm understanding on this, we're not putting any transient room tax into EMS at this point?
no, the only transient room tax that I'm suggesting is going to, solid waste.
So it would be $0, huh, for EMS?
That's right.
Okay, I'll make a motion. I move to direct the Budget Advisory Board to draft the inclusion in the 2020 transient room tax budget allocations as below.
No.
235,750 to the Solid Waste Special Service District Number 1 and 0 to the EMS Special Service District. Is that correct?
If that's what you want.
And authorize the chair to sign all associated documents.
Okay, motion by Mary McGann, second by Jay Lynn Hawks. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Opposed. Mr. Paxman, Councilman Paxman. Okay, I believe that concludes, unless anybody has any further business, I believe that concludes this workshop. We will adjourn it at 3:06 p.m. in the afternoon. Thank everybody for coming, appreciate it. And we will see at 4 o'clock. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I gotta go see Matt and get my computer working so I know what's going on. Yeah, I mean, this is ridiculous. Every time I try and sign on.
And then it would kick me off.
Yeah. Not a happy guy. Okay.
Yeah, I still don't have access to the network.
This other meeting.